We got a special edition of the Illini Inquirer Podcast today. Look at the crew. They are here. It's Isaac Trotter, 24/7 Sports College basketball writer, and it is Mike LaTulip, our Illini Inquirer basketball analyst, getting you ready for the 2025-26 Illini basketball season. Boys, it is here. Exhibition game against Illinois State is coming up on Sunday. Then they go play Florida in an exhibition behind closed doors against the reigning national champion down in Orlando on October 25th. But this should satisfy people for the next couple of weeks leading into the season, where we finally get to know a little bit more about this team that's been injured, that has had issues with getting players over here from Europe. But they're going to tip off regardless on November 3rd to start the season at State Farm Center. Mike LaTulip, how are you, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm great. This is I was counting down the minutes, hours, days till we could do this. So happy to be here, man.
Isaac Trotter, how are you, buddy?
Doing well. I had fun with you up at Big Ten Media Days, and now we get to add Mike to the mix. So this is I love this podcast. I love the one that we did on the roundtable for the Big Ten, and this one's going to be really fun too.
Yeah. So basically calling this our roundtable season preview. We're just going to go around, kind of really focus on these guys. I've talked enough about Illinois basketball, and people want to hear from you too. You guys are the experts here. So I got some topics for you. We'll run through them. We will cover the heck out of this team, and we will cover the heck out of their personnel and what they have on their schedule. So looking forward to this. Should we just dive right in, boys?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Illinois come in at number 17 in the AP Top 25. A fifth time in 6 years that Illinois has been the top 25 of the preseason poll. Haven't done that since Darren Williams, D. Brown, Bruce Weber were here. So that's a good thing for Brad Underwood. The expectations are there. Mike, what did you think? Is that too high, too low, about right for Illinois?
I think it's about right. I think I texted you guys before it came out and said 14 to 17 feels right in the AP poll. And then for the Big Ten poll, I also think it's just right, because I think it's a toss-up between UCLA and Illinois. You could put either of them in the 3 spot, and that wouldn't really bother me. Michigan, I think I know a little bit more and can project a little bit more what they can be, which I think is a really elite defensive team and also an elite rebounding team as well. And then Purdue. So I didn't have any qualms with it at all. I think that's that, and it's properly tiered too. I think it would go in almost in that order, where Purdue's in their own tier right now, and then 2, 3, 4, I think you can flip around, but 3 and 4 specifically, I think you can kind of split in hairs.
Yeah, Trotter, what did you think? The AP poll and the Big Ten projected finish there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Ken Pom, I think, had Illinois 6th. The AP had him 17th, and I was kind of smack dab in the middle of both of those. I had him about 12 or 13. So I think it's fair, right? You kind of enter the season with a lot of expectations, and I think teams I'm actually kind of impressed that people outside of Illinois had done the research and kind of realized what this roster is kind of looking like. Because once you start digging into the personnel and the pieces, this is a team that I think has a chance to do some really, really special things offensively. And it would be easy to overlook them if you just see a David Mirkovic, you don't really know who that is. You just see a Mihailo Petrovic, you don't really know who that is. So the fact that Illinois is 17th, I think also does speak to just the roster and the program that Brad Underwood has put together. And it's a lot of respect for Brad Underwood tends to figure these things out and put a really, really good product on the floor.
I think that's what it is. I think I don't want to give too much credit to the broader general media for doing the homework, but I do think that there's been enough success from this Brad Underwood program to say, yeah, they'll be good. They'll be, they're a top 25 team. It's just certain programs you just kind of end up penciling in there and saying they're going to figure it out. Wisconsin loses Tanjay and loses Klesmit and loses all these pieces, and they're top 25 team. So it's just, I think it speaks to guard. I think Underwood's in that same category of just trusting the fact that no matter what the personnel is, we've seen him put it together.
Yeah, now he gets the benefit of the doubt, right? Now Underwood gets the benefit of the doubt. It's there's talented pieces there. Also having a few guys that people actually know who they are and what they play like is big, because last year Illinois was getting votes, a lot of votes in the preseason poll, just finished outside. I think they were 26th or 27th. You knew they had some NBA talents, but they just 11 new guys. I do want to hit on that before we go. I know we've talked about the offseason before, but Isaac, I'll start with you. What did you make of how Brad Underwood approached this roster heading into this season?
Yeah, I just thought it was smart pivoting. The ability of just like walking in knowing like our biggest, most effective move in free agency is keeping the dudes that we have. And so like being like, hey, Kylan Boswell, like you're not transferring. We're keeping you in here. Tomislav Ivicic, we will do whatever it takes to make sure you're back is I think something that just gives them a real edge moving forward. And I thought, again, like they put all of their chips into Andrei Stojakovic type of bucket, right? Like they flirted around early with some of those bigger names on the wing, whether that's a Josh Dix or some of the other names. But Stojakovic proved to be a piece that like their intel turned out to be right on. And I think that's really important in roster building right now. Like, are you getting the right intel and like, are you getting actionable intel in roster building? And Illinois did that with Stojakovic. This roster would not look anything like it would right now, or we wouldn't be even having this conversation of a top 15 team if Stojakovic wasn't there. And there was a lot of teams that entered roster building being like, hey, this dude, we think he's going to go into the portal and we think we'll have a chance to get him. And none of those things happened. Illinois thought that Stojakovic was going to go in the portal, thought they had a chance to get him, and they got it. That's the difference.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think in addition to that, when we talk about the retention piece of it, prioritizing that retention, the other side of that is understanding where the hard stop is when you're recruiting, and what is the diminishing returns on a number, monetary number for some of these players. I mean, we Adam Miller, like there's been a number of guys that were in that, it had Illinois in the running until
you put Merez Johnson in there.
Johnson,
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's again like you got to be willing to understand what your limits are. And I think part of it at a point, there were points during the offseason where like there may be some needle threading that has to happen here, it's for them to come out all right. And they ended up doing it. I think they trusted, one, their evaluations, but two, where they wanted to allocate those resources. And Brad talked about it, in Chicago, but also when I was there in Champaign, and it's like, the Balkan Five, the Balkan Five, the Balkan Five, the Balkan Five. It's all anyone wants to talk about. But when I go there and see practice, it's not just like, hey, Brad in the orange jumpsuit and the hat and all that stuff. Like those guys, there's like a real connection there, like a real connection. I mean, I'm watching those guys interact, and it's like they all showed up in the same car to campus, and that goes such a long way. When you think about having to expedite that process of acclimation and getting guys on the same page, having those commonalities, as much as people want to like do the AI images and do all that stuff, like it is, I saw it firsthand. Like that is a very, very real thing.
Yeah. And Isaac, I would say the other part of it is the reach of the staff, right? To be able to have the connections that help you get Kylan Boswell last year, Tomislav Ivicic last year, and now to be able to get Andrei Stojakovic, have the intel on him. Miss out on Adam Miller. Oh, Mihailo Petrovic. We like this kid that we saw playing against KJ. And just to have all of these connections and to go find a guy we'll talk about here soon in Keaton Wagler that you evaluate, and David Mirkovic. It's just Orlando Antigua, Jeff Alexander clearly are tied in a lot of places. Brad has hired a good staff that has those connections, and he's made the most of it. I think that's important too.
It is important. It's also kind of interesting, like the sell for Illinois. It's like for a while it was like, oh, if you are a big guard, like Illinois is a great spot for you. Oh, now if you're a big wing, like we have a spot for you. Oh, now if you're a really skilled big, oh, we have a pretty good sell and pitch for that too. So it's like, yeah, the reach is there too, but their ability to shapeshift their roster and put good pitches together at the biggest positions of need, I think is also a pretty big indicator moving forward. And just the bobbing and weaving. I think we all know, like, in the NIL era, like you're going to have different times where maybe the portal, maybe mid-major scouting is going to be a way for you to find little edges to roster build. Maybe Europe will kind of dry up a little bit because everyone's flying over there to invest a ton of money into it, and you can pivot to somewhere else. I think that they're ahead of the curve there. They're ahead of the curve with the Europe trip. Now they're ahead of the curve with like trying to find underrated high school prospects. And they think they stumbled on a really good one in Keaton Wagler. And I think that gives you a little bit of like comfort knowing moving forward, this roster and this roster building and this coaching staff is going to continue to bob and weave in like the ever changing landscape.
Yeah, Mike, the one thing Brad has done is, man, like his ability to adjust based on where the tides are going schematically, roster building, he's been really strong at it.
And it started with Kofi. That changed the whole defensive system. That changed the offense to less spread, more 4 out, 1 in. and then Coleman comes in, you go 5 out, and then you prioritize transition. When you got a Terrence Shannon, you prioritize matchup hunting. When you got a Marcus Damask. And I think to Isaac's point, let's just call it what it is. One of the best recruiting pitches you can have for a transfer or for a high school recruit when you're playing at this level is you putting guys in the NBA. This is 4 guys in 4 years that have gone there. We got some point guards, and we got a point guard. I'll put Io as a point guard, but you got guys that primarily have been wings, and KJ obviously a point guard too. But then you have Will and you have TJ that are wings, and then if Tommy does it, you got the whole board filled out. So it's been pretty cool to see that build, because it didn't happen when I was there, and I just missed it with Myers, but it took a long time even after I was gone. So to see them pick up and get a rhythm like this, and see Illinois night in, or draft night in, night out, to hear Illinois on those stage go up on those stages is massive.
Yeah, Mike, to have that big mural they have up now in Ubben with all 4 of those draft picks.
Awesome.
Something they have to
look at it every practice. Yeah.
Haven't had it in quite a while. Like Io shadow on the wall is really, really
Dude, when I was there, it was a picture of Myers, and then it was like, Darren and D, and then it was like Brian Cook. And Brian Cook was like 4 guys away, and it was like 2015. Brian Cook hadn't been there in like 13 years. So it's getting it to be this rapid again is pretty special.
I love covering football games. I love going to Memorial Stadium on a beautiful fall Saturday, just like last week against Ohio State. But I got to tell you, one of my favorite reasons going up to that press box is they have Columbia Street Roastery coffee there, and they have specifically my favorite, their Nitro Brew. I have about 2 or 3 of those a game, gets me all jacked up for it, but it's some of the most delicious coffee, smooth flavor, great finish, put a little cream in there. It's one of my favorite things about going to cover an Illinois football game. And right now, you can go to Columbia Street Roastery, great local coffee spot here in Champaign-Urbana, get all your freshly roasted coffee, so many fall flavors to choose from, including their pumpkin brew. If you like the PSLs, go try that out. But go to their website, csrcoffee.com, and you can get free shipping on orders over $45. You can get 10% off your first order as well with code GOILLINI2025. So go to csrcoffee.com, get 10% off your first order with code GOILLINI2025, and you can get free shipping on orders over $45. And if you visit them locally, try that Nitro Brew. Tell them Jeremy sent you from Illini Inquirer. Columbia Street Roastery, csrcoffee.com. All right, let's dive in. Offense, we know is going to be a strength. Like even last year with the ups and downs, finished number 15 in the country in offensive efficiency. Ken Pom projects Illinois to have the number 6 offense in the country. Bart Torvik projects the Illini to have the number 9 offense in the country. Mike, we'll start with you. What are your expectations for the offense based on the personnel they've built?
High. Expectations are high. I think the skill level, the IQ, the positional size, I think will allow them to change the geometry of the floor like they have in the past. I think those components that I just mentioned will allow them to go into more backdowns like we saw with Damask, whether that's with Ben or Andres or David Mirkovic, with Kylan, with given like how strong he is and how confrontational he's become at the rim, and getting to the free throw line more as a group. We saw them do that at a really high level 2 years ago. Now, what I am certain of with this offense is they're going to be a better shooting team.
Yeah,
I'm certain of that. I'll stick my chest out and be certain about that. What I'm not certain about is whether they'll be a better offensive rebounding team. I think that is an area that is going to need to progress as the season goes on. But I will say, if they can become a top 25 offensive rebounding team and then take the steps necessary with those other kind of key measures with outside shooting, it's for sure a top 10 offense. And we'll touch on other parts of it. And I know there's going to be changes to the offense beyond what we saw with just like the 5 out with Tommy and the high ball screens. Like they want to clear out the elbows. They want guys to play in space more because they have guys that can attack matchups, and that allows you to have more possession control, lower turnover rate, and all that stuff factors into a really efficient offense.
Great point on the offensive rebounding. 19th in the country last year, second during conference play. Isaac, when you shoot that many threes and you miss a lot of them, you got to get some of them back. So that was key last year. But what do you think? What are your expectations of this offense, and what are you most interested in watching?
I'm interested if the transition offense is really back to what the levels that Brad Underwood wants to do. Because, I mean, the 7 seconds scoring in 7 seconds thing was something that was like a staple of like his press conferences. And at times last year, Illinois played the slowest that they've played in the Brad Underwood era. Part of that was just KJ's like struggles to fully buy in on pushing the basketball in transition and really playing with a lot of pace. This year's roster looks completely different to me. Boswell, when he gets push aheads, is gone. Petrovic, I've called him an Energizer Bunny. I did the Curbelo comp early. Like that's what he is. Like he is gone when he gets those push aheads. And I do agree that this team will not be an awesome offensive rebounding team, but I do think they can be a very good defensive rebounding team. And I think that will kickstart some extra transition stuff. Stojakovic can push ahead and go. I feel like this offense has way more layers this year than it did last year. I think they're going to take better shots in the half court. They're older. They're going to be a little bit more understanding of like, hey, we can run an offense and actually get a good look in multiple possessions, attacking second side ball screens. They have multiple handlers this year, which is something that I think is so important to having as well. And then when you have Tommy, that is, I call him like the Tyreek Hill of the NFL, right? Like Tommy is like your lid lifter offensively because his ability to pull defenders away from the rim. Illinois shot 70% at the rim when Tommy was on the floor last year with an offense that chose to take a ton of step-back threes. I think this year they could shoot a similar percentage at the rim on a lot higher volume.
Michael, last year when they had 3 teenagers basically running the offense, I mean, Kylan was still a teenager last year. It could be frustrating to watch, right? Like some of the shot decisions that they made. How do you think this will look different with Kylan established, knowing downhill driving is a strength of his? Petrovic is a different animal on the ball. And Keaton Wagler seems like a really strong guy on the ball. So how will Illini fans see, like, what would this look different offensively?
Yeah, I think, and when Isaac's mentioning the transition, I was going to touch on it more when we talked about defense, because you're right. The defensive rebounding is going to predicate whether you can really get out and even get the ball out of the net. I mean, they do not want to inbound the ball below the free throw line. That is an absolute no-no. And even for the guys that get defensive rebounds, they want Mirkovic to bust out. They want Ben to bust out. Ben, you get a defensive rebound, like just go, because when you look at transition defense, a lot of times the point guard, there's guys sprinting back. They used to call it like halfback, fullback. You got guy at half court, guy all the way back, and then you just point and talk. You don't have a man in transition. So the push that doesn't need an outlet is going to force those mismatches you already want to get into with your offense. So that's part of why their turbo game is so important. But what's going to look different, I think, is you have more guys this year in getting past just the transition. In the half court, you have more guys that can truly like go win matchups, head up, go win matchups. And while last year was probably a little bit more Tommy 5 out, and you have the cuts more going from the wing, I think you're going to see more of kind of like a rotational, more like guys. There's going to be 3 guys low, and it's going to clear the elbows and clear the slots out for guys to really be able to operate in the middle third of the floor to just make it even more difficult to guard. Because I know like Keaton can do that, Kylan can do that, Petrovic for damn sure can do that. I witnessed it firsthand. That dude, for whatever you've seen on film, it's like his burst in the half court is about as good. I mean, like Terrence and Io were so good end to end, and Petrovic is that too. But turning the corner in the half court, like you can't square him back up. You can't. And so like his shot diet's going to be something he's got to work on, but it's going to look different in that sense, where it's going to look more like 23-24, I think, where it's like, hey, what are our matchups? Even if it's slower tempo in the half court, fast tempo, full court. But once we get in there and settle in and we're past secondary transition, we're setting up shop. It's matchup hunting time.
Isaac, to wrap up the conversation, offense, go where you want, but I'm also interested in your thoughts on how Andrei Stojakovic makes use of all these pieces around him, because he did not have this at Cal.
That's exactly where I was going. I think getting Andrei's catch and go game going is going to be so different than what he's had in the past. Like, I'm just envisioning him a lot of actions not necessarily like the IO stuff where it was like those DHOs into dribble hand, like, or the pin downs into dribble handoffs to get IO to his right hand, right? Like, I just am envisioning him more coming off of the ball and just finding ways to get 1-2 dribbles and get downhill. And like, that's the version of Stojakovic that I think could shoot 150 free throws this year. That's the version of Stojakovic that, like, when he's off the ball, he's still punishing teams, even if he's not necessarily making threes, because you can't forget about him as a cutter. And there were times last year where I think Trey White, like, he scored 20 points some nights and they didn't run a single play for him. And I think that Stojakovic has like some of those. He's Trey White on steroids, in my opinion. And so, like, that's where I feel like Stojakovic is set up to have the best season of his career. It might not be the best from a counting stats perspective, but he will post the most efficient numbers of his career. I'm like 100% confident in that.
All right, defensively, Illinois had some real low lows last year. Alabama scoring 100, Maryland scoring 88 plus in 2 games, Duke obviously 110, Wisconsin 95 in that one. But guys, they ended up finishing 40th in the country in defensive efficiency, number 4 in the Big Ten in defensive efficiency. But you see the KenPom numbers with this defense projection-wise, kind of surprising. KenPom projects Illinois to have the number 16 defense. Bart Torvik even higher at number 11. So, Isaac, I'll let you start on the defensive side. What are your expectations for this defense?
I'll just start with the projections. I think that they're going all in thinking that, like, Illinois' rim denial and rim protection is going to be awesome. And so, like, I can kind of see it, right? Like, you're going to have 40 minutes of a 7'1", 7'2" guy on the floor. Like, I don't think Illinois is going to be getting into those scramble drills quite as often defensively. I think Illinois is going to force a lot of jumpers. I think Illinois is going to continue to, like, let the right guys shoot threes and take away the top options from shooting threes. That's an underrated part about this Illinois defense. They do a really good job of, like, that top 3-point shooter doesn't usually tend to get 6, 7, 8 attempts. That's a sign of a well-schooled defense. But those projections also seem a tad aggressive to me. Just I think this roster, I don't think they have enough. I don't think the athleticism is at the level to have a top 15 defense. And if we've learned anything from what really is working in college basketball lately, it's double big lineups. It's really athletic teams that can really turn your water off at the rim and take away the top 3-point shooters and mix in a little takeaways. That's just my opinion.
What do you think, Mike?
I think what the metrics don't factor in is there's going to be material changes to this Illinois defense, and that takes some time to master. And so, especially when you haven't had a full roster together at this point.
Totally.
Like, you just haven't had it. So, I mean, I don't 16th. No, not certainly not out of the gates. Can they get there? I mean, like, genuinely, their length, their point of attack defense with Kylan. I know Wagler's been one of their leader in steals and in practice, and they do have high-level communicators. I mean, Tommy is arguably their best communicator. Mirkovic kind of stepping right into that. He was tremendous when I saw him in practice. And I think the rim protection can be strong. And they may not always result in blocked shots, but altered shots. And a lot of it's going to depend on what coverage they're in. And you're going to want to have Tommy around the paint as much as possible. But some of these other guys, you're going to want to blow things up. Like David Mirkovic, you're going to want to kind of get after the ball, put 2 on the ball. And then you got to factor in all the other components too that you think about. And do you mind if I elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, well, because I'm going to write a story this week that, I mean, there's so many X factors of the season. Like Zvonimir Ivasic is one, just the highs and lows of him. I'm really interested to see. You mentioned Mirkovic. Could he eventually push through into the starting lineup? Wagler clearly is an X factor. But it's really Cam Crocker, isn't it? I mean, new defensive coordinator, giving him basically carte blanche to kind of do what he wants to do. And they're keeping it pretty quiet. But, I mean, it is going to be really interesting, his impact, Mike. So take that wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I think it's just important. And I want to just kind of quickly break down. I promise I'm going to do this as succinctly as I possibly can. But I think it's really pertinent and relevant to this team and what they're going through as they learn new things, because it isn't just going to be personnel-based switching and drop this year. There's going to be some of that for sure, but there's going to be other components as well. So, like, to me, to build a strong defensive unit, there's 3 phases. Phase 1 is your absorbing and thinking phase. This is the implementation stage. This is where you're processing new information, but all the thinking that comes along with that while repping it can lead to slowing you down, make you a little bit more robotic, take away some of your activity because you're having to process so much. So that's the first phase. And that's a lot of like your breakdown segments where Crocker will step in there and say, hey, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, 5v5, like we're going to build this thing up. But then eventually you graduate to what phase 2 would be, which is the thinking and communicating stage. So you're still not playing as instinctually as maybe you'd like to play, but you're confident enough in the plan to be able to communicate it with conviction. That's the second, and communicate it early and often. That's the second phase. The third phase, which is where everyone wants to get, is the communicating and feeling stage. And so you're identifying and yelling coverages with conviction. Like I mentioned, you're doing all those things, but the feel part of it is so important. So that when I say feel, I mean, I'm guarding the ball up top at half court. And there's just a feel that comes along with the depth between half court and the 3-point line. And when someone runs up to set a ball screen, am I too high to go over, or is this an under? Or am I back, kind of heels back towards the 3-point line? Okay, I cannot go under here. I got to go over. That's all feel just from reps. And then even for the big man, okay, how high do I want to go up? If I'm showing on a ball screen and putting 2 on the ball, you actually don't want to be hip to hip. You want to offer enough space for that other guard to slide through and square the ball back up. So like all that stuff is feel. The backside. Maybe I'm on the tag man in the corner on the opposite side. And I got to understand, okay, if we put 2 on the ball, even if we're in drop and 2 commit to the ball, how far do I tag down to where I can still recover to my guy on the backside and get a hand up, get a closeout, not get beat off the dribble? Like all that comes from feel, and all that comes from your habits, and all that comes from the breakdown drills that I just mentioned. That builds those habits. It removes the thinking, and it takes all of the instinctual components to defense and infuses them in. And so you can have guys on the floor that have good feel. Kylan Boswell has good feel. Like I'm not saying like he has to learn how to have good feel. Kylan has that. Tommy, I think in a lot of ways has that. But as a unit, that's different. And where I see this group right now is they are somewhere in that still thinking and communicating phase, that second phase. And so eventually they're going to break into that third phase. It takes time because there's just more on their plate this year. New guys for sure, but new coverages and a lot of stuff going on. So I think it's a work in progress. The 16 is certainly too high, but again, at that end of the floor, the defense, the rebounding, it all factors into how you get back into that turbo game. So I apologize
because it's a good sign that like Isaac, what they're doing is going to take time, but it's going to be a little bit more complicated than what they used to do, which is a good thing to send at opponents. It's just probably going to take a little bit of time to do that because they need to be less predictable.
Yeah, and I think that it just takes a little bit more time just for like defensive continuity to kind of play its course out. And again, like let's talk about it. Petrovic has not practiced with Stojakovic and Tomislav together, right? All 3 of those guys have not been able to play together. Those are 3 of your 6 or 7 highest minute guys this year. Like it's going to take time. I also feel like it speaks to just like the defense that you see in November will not be the defense that you see in February. And the February defense will not be the same that you see in March, hopefully. And like that's something that I think is a little bit more enticing because this team needed change-ups. Even with this roster, with how big this team is, like why is zone not on the table? That I think zone should absolutely be in the cards here as a potential change-up. There's really smart stabs throughout the country that are mixing in little pieces of zone to try to like continue to knock some of these sharp offenses off of its kilter just a tad. And this team is huge.
And I'm telling you, Isaac and Mike, if Cam Crocker convinces Brad Underwood to play zone, that's one of the biggest signs that we've seen that Brad is adaptable.
Totally. And then the other thing too with it is like, yeah, having changeups are nice. Like, can anybody have a little bit of nasty? Like that's those are the elite defenses last year, like the nastiness that St. John's had at times last year, just totally like they were refusing like to lose basketball games, even when their jumpers weren't going in because they're just nasty. The Pacers didn't have great defensive personnel, but they were just nasty. And like that's sort of something where I feel like this group has to find an edge to them a little bit more defensively instead of being so passive all the time.
And Mike, you could tell Colin Boswell was frustrated by that because he's got that. I mean, he's got that. And one thing he said over and over again is Cam lets me be me. So it sounds like they're going to unleash that pit bull a little bit.
For sure. And to what Isaac's talking about, when I think of nasty in college basketball defensively, I think of certainly St. John's. I think of Houston. I think of Iowa State. And the thing with those three teams is they really don't have great principles. Like their actual principles are not great. Like they overhelp. They rotate when they shouldn't rotate. But damn it, like it stems from just a mindset. And when I watch, and this is when I'll go back to my phases that I talked about, when I watch St. John's, Houston, and Iowa State, how much thinking is going on for those guys defensively? Because right now, like some of the things that you'll see, and I think Big Z is a good example of this. Like Big Z is like, okay, what's the coverage? Do the coverage. And there's a totally different mindset to like, the goal of the possession is not the coverage. The goal of the possession is to make your opponent feel you, create uncomfortability, and get a stop. And when you have that mindset, that's when the nastiness comes out. When you think like coverage, what's coverage? Okay, we're up to the level of the screen. I'm up to the level of the screen. We're drop. I'm in drop. And that's when you have Michigan State and USC shoot pull-up jumpers that are usually at a 34% clip in college basketball at 53%. Because they're coming off like, I don't have a rear view contest, and I don't got a guy having any type of activity while he's in drop. It's just hands kind of at your side and retreat back into the paint and another pull-up. So that's how I look at defense. It's like, how much can you remove the thinking, and can you play with the nastiness that you're talking about, Isaac? Because I think it's going to lead to more turnovers for this group, which will put less strain on you for half-court offense and get you into that turbo game faster and create more easier opportunities and more free throw opportunities.
Fall always feels like a reset. Between back to school, busier routines, and shorter days, finding time to cook can be tough. That's why I love Factor. Their chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals make it easy to stay on track and enjoy something comforting and delicious no matter how hectic the season gets. Try more variety and more meals. Choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. And you can savor global flavors. For the first time, try Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. For more choices to better nutrition, that's why 97% of Factor's customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference no matter your routine. Between covering the Illini around the country, following my kids around at 6 and 9 years old, Factor makes our lives easier. You just put it in the microwave for a few minutes and you get a delicious, nutritious meal. You can too. Eat smart at factormeals.com/Illini50off and use code Illini50off to get 50% off your first box, plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code Illini50off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box, plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Let's move on to the next one. Let's go more personnel-based now. Which of these Illini players are on one of the three All-Big Ten teams? I went with the three guys that we think. I'm not going to project Keaton Wagler, Mihailo Petrovic quite at this level quite yet.
Come on.
Tomislav Ivicic, Colin Boswell, Andrei Stojakovic. Isaac, which of those three are on one of the three All-Big Ten teams that are harder and harder to get on in the Big Ten?
I think it's Ivicic. I think just how important he is offensively and defensively, it will be easier for voters to see. And I think that gives you a better path to it. And I'll say it over and over again. Only 4 players that were at the high major ranks that came back to school last year that made 40 or more threes. Illinois has 2 of the 4 on the roster. You have arguably the best shooting front court in college basketball. if you're the anchor of that defense and honestly, like the straw that stirs the drink offensively for a top 5 offense, that's the path to do it. And I think that like the added strength for his game, the ability to get more free throws, the ability to punish mismatches a little bit more inside, the ability to like also add in, like those jump hooks that he was getting at 9 feet. Now they're from 6 feet because he's a little bit stronger. Like, I think that's a path for him to put up 17 and 8 this year. And he doesn't even have to play 37 minutes a game for that. Like that's a really, really valuable player when you add in the playmaking and the rim, the rim impact, because Illinois' rim defense is good when he's on the floor. It just is what it is.
Mike, take it wherever you want to go with those 3 guys, the stars.
It's Tommy for me too. I think there's less competition as a big one. 2, I think he's going to have some of the counting stats that a lot of the media members look. No offense to the media members, obviously.
Voting member here, yes.
I guess in a way. I mean, I don't worry about you, Jeremy. You know your stuff. But like that's the easy way to look at it. Andres, like we'll see. I think he's going to be a really, really high level. Again, I don't think he's an offensive engine, but I think he's going to be a really, really high level second or third piece, which could land you on an all Big Ten team. But Kylan, here's a potential prediction with Kylan. I could totally see something like this shaking out like it did with Damas. Now Damas was very firmly in all Big Ten, but Kylan, I think, unfortunately ends up falling into like the Trent Frazier category, where it's like his teammates, his opponents, opposing coaches all know the value that he brings, that he wrecks games, his screen navigation, all that stuff, takes you out all your stuff. And I could see a world where Kylan is like a third team coach's honorable mention media, because the coaches are the ones that are like, God damn. Like it's the same thing with Damas. That's why Damas was first team coaching.
Yeah.
And you had a game plan for him.
He's a victim of some guy on a bad team who's going to put up good numbers.
Yeah.
And I try not to single anybody out here, but like Dawson Garcia was a phenomenal stats eater on a bad team. Good player. I'm not saying he's not, but like a John Blackwell was making my all Big Ten team over him, right? Like there's just guys like that. And I think Kylan Boswell is kind of in that category.
And he's a victim of his own selflessness, to be honest.
I also think that like Kylan is not that far away from averaging 17 a night. I like he's not.
No.
The most important thing for me, and that I'm going to be watching in preseason games and then the whole lead up, is what threes does he take and what threes does he not take. And if he has found a way in year 4 to understand like that balance of like, this is a good 3, this is a bad 3, and knowing which ones to take and which ones to pass up, that will tell you a lot about his maturation in year 2. And if he's on the right side of that thing, he can have 15, 16, 17 points a night in this scheme, just with how fast they're going to play, the shots at the rim, the free throw attempts. And we know that like when he gets rolling, he can make 3 or 4 or 5 threes on a single game.
And he should get better ones ones because of how fast they're running. And it's not just like hit ahead threes. It's we're running so fast. We've gotten a second defender to commit. We skipped it. And then bang, bang, tic tac toe. Here's Kylan at the top of the key, Kylan at the wing. And those just very like in rhythm step in threes. I mean, I don't know what the actual number would have been last year, but I can probably think of like 17 to 20, just like complete concession threes from Kylan, where it's like fast break, kind of secondary, like I'll just do this one off the dribble. And it's like those add up when you're 4 for 17 on those, it adds up, and it prevents you from being that's like the difference between being like a 36% 3-point shooter and like a 31% is just like the shot diet and quality.
Yeah. I did a story on Kylan, and some of the numbers I even said to you guys were unbelievable, but he was like a 40% 3-point shooter at Arizona, mostly catch and shoots, right? I mean, it was like 56 to 60%.
He didn't have the option to do anything more than that.
That's right. But his ability to get to the free throw line, get downhill, it was 6.1 free throw attempts over his last 7-8 games. Before that, it was like 3.8. And he kept saying that over and over again at Big Ten Media Days. Just get downhill, get to the free throw line. The importance of that, Mike. That's his game. And he can be a great 3-point shooter if, like you're saying, he takes the right ones.
Well, I think you saw last year just his ability to get to the line, I think allowed him to keep his confidence despite the shooting woes from the outside. That's just it's a totally different. You feel way more involved and in the game offensively when it's not like, hey, if I'm not a downhill guy and I can't get to the rim and my outside shot's not falling, it's like I don't really feel like I'm involved. But now you can at least steady things a little bit by getting to the line 5-6 times and seeing the ball go through the rim. So I think that was really helpful for him.
And the data on it too, like I don't have it in front of me, but I thought he got better at finishing around the basket as the season progressed as well.
Hit him,
like,
Jeremy.
I got the
Hit him, Jeremy. Jeremy's got a stat. I don't know if does that an intentional tee up. If so, that was.
But all right. During the first 28 games, he averaged 3.8 shots per game at the rim, 55% on those attempts. Not good. During the final 7 games, 6.1 shots per game at the rim. Made 83% of them, Isaac.
That's a 17 points a game guy.
Could be. I mean, he was during that final stretch, right? That final 7-8 games. And that's what Jeff Alexander, Tyler Underwood, all of them were telling me is like, that guy, we need that for an entire season, Mike.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll see. All right, let's move on to the 4, one of the most interesting positions on this team. The front court has a lot of interesting pieces. You could see some small ball at the 4. You could see huge lineup with Twin Towers. So, Mike, I'll start with you. What's your minutes allocation projection at the 4 with Ben Hummerkaus, David Mirkovic, Zvonimir Ivisic? Could you go Andrei Stojakovic? Hit me. What you got?
I think it's pretty split between David and Ben. I'm not saying exactly 20-20. I think there's going to be, opportunistically and in certain situations where you pair Z and Tommy. Certainly small ball lineups you could play with Andres at the 4. But I think it's going to be pretty close to a split between those two. And I think they'll probably lean towards Ben early on. I think it's just elder statesman, knows his way around. I think David was really impressed. The second day I was there, David was arguably the best player in practice. But he still has a little ways to go defending without fouling. And that's going to be a really, really key focus for him, I think, and will determine whether or not he stays on the floor. But Ben, you can just tell with Ben. I mean, I don't expect we can't expect monumental leaps from every single player on the team. But I think Ben can be a better version of what he was last year. And I think that's going to be, again, it's catch and shoot. He's going to have some back down opportunities, be a little bit more opportunistic, straight line drives, but he is really, I know it was almost like a running bit that people were harping on last year, but he really is good positionally defensively. Like he knows where to be defensively. And that always kind of gives you a leg up as a veteran compared to a younger guy. But I do think there's going to be a point in time where that pass off happens.
Yeah. With Mirkovic, Isaac, it's always the fouls for freshman 4s, like Merez Johnson with 6 fouls a game, 6 fouls per 40 minutes last year. But man, the upside is intriguing, but you also have a high floor veteran in Hummerkaus.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much they try to weaponize Mirkovic's playmaking and just like the handle and what he can do with the ball in his hands, because they're just so different. Like Ben's back downs are what they are, and it's a good counter, but he's on the floor to really hit those slot threes, especially from he gives you a little bit of a different look. Mirkovic, I'm just excited to see what type of mismatches they can create with him as a screener and a handler, and just how his defense kind of how quickly he gets up to speed defensively and what type of guys they choose to let him guard. Because the more I just look at this roster, the more I just don't see a real upside to playing 4 guards. Stojakovic at the 4 makes sense, but just go big and smash mouth these teams. It just makes way more sense to me with the front court that you put together.
So I have long been very skeptical of the Ivisic lineup of Twin Towers. Can I mark you both down, Mike and Isaac, that we're skeptical of the Ivisic lineup, or how much do we see of it?
I'm skeptical because of the defensive side of the ball. I don't like Z roaming defensively on the perimeter, or if you play a team that has 4 guards on the floor, even just another big that spaces, it's just he's not comfortable out there. Now he can contest at a really high level, but some of the stuff when you get movement, if you just played shell and we're just 4 out 1 in, he can get by. But when you start getting movement and cuts, and I got to shift from strong side to weak side, that's where he struggles. But I do think there's going to be moments where you might see it, But I do also think Mirkovic is going to play a little 5. That would not surprise me at all. And now you have a potential lineup where everyone on the floor can grab and go. And you can play fast, even faster, because Tommy's not going to bust out. Tommy's going to have to find an outlet. So just another interesting wrinkle there, which I think speaks to the lineup optionality that they have.
Yeah, I think go where you want you here, but like I just want to say, like, Zvonimir Ivicic is one of the most. I don't know the spectrum, how wide it is for him, because we saw it last year, right? I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Like, the greats are great, the lows are lows. I just don't know where it's going to land with him this year. He's one of the guys that's toughest to project for me.
Yeah, everybody wants that shot blocking center who can bang threes. Like, that's just, everybody wants that. But like, it feels like it's all the meat and potatoes stuff that will determine whether he's in the NBA in the next couple of years. I agree with Mike. Like, the shot fakes that Zvonimir jumps for at Arkansas last year were some of the most like egregious. Like, he did not see a pump fake that he didn't love to jump. Like, he was ready for that. The other thing too, the Mirkovic at the 5 is interesting because I didn't think Tommy's conditioning last year was very good. And that was something that, like, is it illness?
Can he be healthy, not have strep like 4 times? That's going to be,
maybe the tonsils open up some things for him.
You would hope.
Yeah. So like, I'm just curious to see where his conditioning level is at, especially with added weight. Because you're right. Like, if you get Mirkovic at the 5, like, I think you're going to start to see some teams like you could really, really, really ramp up the tempo. And that's the fun part about this. Cause like, you can play fast, you can play slow, you can play big, you can play small, you can play like, that's optionality is really, really everything right now in college basketball. And Illinois has it. Other teams don't.
Go ahead, Mike.
Last 2 points here on Zvonimir and on David, because I think the one thing that like you see up close with Zvonimir is like his shooting ability is at 7'2" is absolutely insane. I mean, I'm talking like no wasted motion, quick release. It's just it's honestly, it was actually jarring to see it. I mean, I was sitting on the sideline. It was pretty jarring to see it live, like drive, dribble, pitch, and it's just like up and in. And then for David, when I talk about the focus on not being, not fouling, Merez struggled with this last year too. I think about like guarding Martinelli, and he figured out like as the game went on, but it starts with your hands. Like, it starts with where your hands are on the possession. And David has he has this propensity right now, and he had it last year too. His hands are low a lot. And when your hands are low, in order to contest, they got to go high. And when they got to go high, you're going through somebody, or you're creating a collision, or you're creating contact. That's where the fouls happen. And the guy, like the bigs that learn how to defend without fouling, they're always here. Their arms are always out. So that anytime a foul comes into play, it's not your arms. It's like you can bring your chest into it. You can bring your like that is how you defend as a big. And he's learning that. He's young. I think that's just going to be habits that he's going to have to break, just like Zvonimir has habits from playing with Coach Cal for 2 years that he is absolutely going to have to break. And both of it just comes from, it's more technical with David, but for Zvonimir, it's just like how bought in can you be to the simplification of your game is going to be the question for him.
All right, let's move to the backcourt, to the more interesting guys on a very interesting team. I wrote it, guys. Like, this staff is really trying to check itself with Keaton Wagler. They can't. They're just too dang excited about what they've seen since he's arrived in the summer. Going to play a huge role. So, Mike, I'll start with you. How bought into the Keaton Wagler hype train are you?
I mean, the hype to me is kind of irrelevant. What is the hype? I mean, last year it was like Ben Humrickhouse is going to be the next Dalton Connect. I mean, it's like the hype is like gone. It's too far in some ways, probably not far enough in some other ways. What I am bought into is this dude is a really damn good basketball player. And I watched probably 5 total hours of practice over a 2-day span. He didn't make one freshman mistake. Not one. Truly. I mean, I was really just blown away by his poise. I think that poise is going to allow him to weather some of the peaks and valleys that he's naturally going to have as a freshman this year. But he really does play, and you'll hear it echoed through everybody that sees him play live. He plays like a 3rd or 4th year guy. Like, he really does. And he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. He seemingly just kind of knows what the right play is and makes the right play, even though it doesn't have to be a home run. It's just what's the right read, make that read. His IQ helps him on both ends. His shooting ability is for real, off the bounce and off the catch. He's got a little bit of a low release, but it's repeatable. And that's important. That's so important technically as a shooter to have a repeatable motion. That's going to help with percentages. But he was super impressive. And again, I don't think he's a 17 a game type of guy, but he is a flat out winning basketball player. And he did it in high school. His teams didn't lose much in the drills that I watched. Like and it's amazing to see the gravity that he's already possessed, where it's like, we talk about Kylan, like Kylan is like looking at him. This is why I talk about the selflessness of Kylan. Kylan's looking at him in practice, like flipping him the ball, late clock, like, go, bro, go work. And like, that tells me all I need to know, the trust that he already has from his teammates. He's not deferential. The one area I think for him that he'll improve upon, he's so good with the ball. I mean, good Lord. Like, he just gets to where he wants to go. But off ball, he's going to have some, again, gravity from his shooting, but off ball, he just has, I think he's going to struggle a little bit with like guys meeting him and grabbing him off ball and getting that separation, whether it's for cuts or coming back to the ball. That's just going to be something he needs to improve on, but he's a damn good player, man. He really is.
Yeah, that's where I've gone. It's like, I didn't expect this guy maybe to play fringe minutes, and it's clear he's going to be a major piece of what they do. He doesn't have to be the best player. He doesn't have to be the best player like the freshman were last year. But the way they talk about him, it's like, I'm not going to say he's a one and done draft pick, but it sounds like he's more ready and just more consistent than the freshman that they had last year. So what an addition that is, Isaac, when Ty Rodgers gets hurt. And you had some questions about backcourt depth.
Hell of an eval. Hell of an eval. That's what I keep going back to. Here's the other thing too. The way that he connects the lineups to me is something that really stands out, because it's like when Petrovic is on the floor, you're like, all right, do we have enough? Like, can he really score? Like, okay, the shooting concerns of Stojakovic isn't making threes and Petrovic isn't making threes and Boswell's not making threes. Like, how does that work? Then if Wagler's jumper's legit, which everybody says it is at 6'6", you have somebody that can play on the ball. You have someone that can play off the ball. You have someone who can make reads in pick and rolls and also be able to hit, catch, and shoot threes. It's just like he makes this offense connected, and then you just get really big really quickly when he's on the floor. 6'6", Boswell's 6'2" with a huge wingspan. Stojakovic is 6'7". You're going to have double bigs on the floor where that's a 6'9" guy and a 7'1" guy. Like, that's where I think the connective piece of that goes into play. And if you turn your head, if like you just close your eyes and you're hearing how Mike describes him as like a reliable two-way guy, can play with the ball, can play off the ball. Who does that remind you of last year from the freshman class? It was Jace Richardson. Jace, like, that was the type of player that like they were talking about him as also like a reliable, consistent, connective two-way player and who makes shots, doesn't make mistakes. That's what Jace was for Michigan State last year, and obviously developed into something way more. But early season Jace is what I keep going back to now as something that Keaton could really, really help this team. Is he going to start? Maybe. Is he not? Like, I mean, if not, though, he's going to be like a 22 to 25 minute per game guy now. I didn't project that 2 months ago.
Yeah, Mike, and like you could play him with both guards. You could play him with one guard, right? Like, and it's just, he's such an important piece. And I thought Isaac made a great comp last time he was on with John Blackwell, his freshman year at Wisconsin, what he kind of brought there. So just what a huge development that he's an impact player.
Yeah. And look, the comps, I agree. And the reason why Blackwell and Richardson are good comps, I think Wagler's similar to Richardson as a player. I don't think he's as similar to Blackwell as a player, but the commonalities is the fact that raised the team ceiling.
Yeah.
Both. Yep. I mean, like it pushed Michigan State through that ceiling when you just needed a guy that could kind of create, that had really good feel, that you just knew that you felt like he's a very calming influence. Like when you watch Jace Richardson, you're like, he's got the ball in his hands. You're not like what's going to happen here? I feel a little bit of that with Petrovic sometimes, but like to your point, Jeremy, when you think about just the recruiting and the roster construction, if Keaton Wagler wasn't a thing, I mean, how much were you like, Petrovic, Like, let's so, and not only just like, is he going to pan out as a good player? Petrovich is a good player, but like health, foul trouble, all these little things that happen throughout the course of a season. Illinois injuries and illnesses. That's what the I stands for.
Last year's chapter was called Injuries and Illnesses.
Yeah. But like those things happen, and now you have so many more like contingency plans with this lineup that I think is really great. And Isaac, you touched on the eval. I don't know if I've said it on this podcast with you, Jeremy, but like I had, one of my coaches that I know from he's at Minnesota now, but he was at Colorado State, and they were in heavy on Wagler, heavy in the shadows. The second Illinois got involved and they offered him, like he called me, he's like, mother, like they know. And like, I know that coaches have been calling this staff from the mid-major ranks, like, how good is he? And they're like, yeah, he's good. And they're like, God, like we knew it. Like, it's just, it's one of those things where like, if he didn't go to Illinois and ended up going to Drake and Ben McCollum stayed at Drake, like he would have been a guy that I think from the mid-major ranks is like getting, potentially national attention.
And that's where it goes back to, not to bring it back to NIL, but like,
come on,
think of what you'd have to pay somebody like that if they hit the portal next year.
Yeah.
And so it's like, So it's like, that's where it's like goes into really smart roster building of like, that's the undervalued stuff. And not saying like they're not going to pay Wagler what he's worth next year, right? Or whatever happens. Like, we'll let that play out. But those type of players in the portal next year are really, really expensive. And you maybe dodged a bullet and getting into a bidding war because you pulled the trigger on him early and you knew the eval was right.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, like that's why finding guys like Wagler, they're very high in Ethan Brown, what he can be. That might be the next area where it's kind of finding your money ball pieces of a roster that you need to build a successful roster moving forward. All right, Mihailo Petrovich. Isaac, starting point guard or sixth man?
I think he's going to end up coming off the bench. That's just kind of my feel on the situation. If I have to do a starting lineup right now, Petrovich is the starting point guard, but I think eventually when push comes to shove, he's coming off the bench. And that's crazy to me. I can't believe it, honestly.
Well, we still got to see him be eligible too. So it might make sense to get Keaton Wagler ready for that role, Mike.
Six man. I think he's a six man. I think it makes the most sense he makes the most sense as a guy you can cut loose with your second unit.
Yeah.
I don't know how much sense it makes to be like, here are the keys, brother. Like he needs to have that kind of one track mind. I gotta go. I'm in the game. I gotta go. I think that's where he can be at his best. I think he keeps the defense on their heels. He's as good in their turbo game as anybody. But beyond some of the spacing concerns with him, the reality is, would he be a part of their best defensive lineup? Would he be a part of their best rebounding lineup? And if you're a guy vying for 30 minutes a game, that's a lot to overcome if you can't be a part of either of those lineups. So I think that's something to think about. Now, he's going to be fun. There's going to be stretches and sequences and games where he undoubtedly puts on a show. But yeah, like I think if he ends up being the sixth man, I think he can be one of the better sixth men in the entire conference.
Isaac, second year, Curbelo wasn't that fun. First year, Curbelo was pretty fun. So I could take that off the bench.
Can I give you an interesting comp too? Remember Elijah Hawkins at Minnesota? Like when he just kind of comes in a little bit undersized, but plays with great pace and can kind of get others involved and just sets the table. And I think that's where, obviously Hawkins was a pretty solid shooter. Like even at a low volume, I think he shot 40% on like 3 or 4 attempts a game. Petrovich isn't going to be that. And I think he'll struggle to score at times this year. But having somebody coming off the bench who can also raise the tempo and also just organize it, I like the combo of Mirkovic and Petrovich coming in together as your sixth and seventh man. I think that makes a ton of sense just to change the tenor of your lineup. And if he's your Elijah Hawkins, where he's just dialing up pocket passes over and over for Tommy to get in the middle of the floor for those 8-foot little runners, that's going to be a really, really good part of your offense.
Mike, can I tell you, Petrovich, Mirkovic, Ivicic off the bench. Pretty good.
It's not bad at all.
Pretty good.
That's one of the best in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it fills a lot of needed areas, and I think it allows you to just, don't have to like rely on them heavily. You got very stable pieces to do that, but man, the different levers you can pull with that personnel grouping off the bench is is pretty neat. And yeah, Petrovic, his ability, like I said earlier in the pod, if he turns a corner on a ball screen, like you're not squaring it back up. You're not. Like he's that quick. Now, can he be a drop coverage punisher? That's a question, because like the reality is, like, you look at some of his stuff last year, he shoots a lot of the shots Illinois' defense wants to force. For me, like it's like long paint twos and pull-ups. So how does he rework his shot diet? I think is going to be really interesting.
All right. We'll wrap up with a few quicker ones here. More total minutes this season. We're getting deep on the roster here, guys. Jake Davis, Brandon Lee, the freshman guard, or currently injured Ty Rodgers. I'm just leaving it open for a Ty Rodgers return, because Illinois has not made it official that a return is without question. So, Isaac, I'll give you that one.
I'll go Jake Davis. I think he knows his role. He knows his job. He's a good cutter, makes open threes, quick trigger on those jumpers too, right? Like he doesn't need much room to get it going. And I think he will be a fine defensive player when he doesn't have to guard Derek Queen.
That's right. Mike, what do you got?
Jake Davis. A good thing this isn't a debate show. We've been in lockstep on a lot of these, but certainly one of the best shooters on the roster. He's tough. He has mastered the simplification that I'm talking about with like Zvonimir, though those guys that have to, I think, bake that into their game. And I think the thing that I like most about him when we talk about their turbo game and their transition game, corner discipline is so important when you're running in transition. When I say corner discipline, I mean like you do not want to start angling when you get to half court. That messes with spacing. Jake Davis is about as good as anybody on this team as like, I am getting as deep as I possibly can to the corner. That's going to give me an opportunity on a hit ahead, but it's also going to stretch the floor. So when Tommy comes down and sets a screen and picks and pops, the guy can't just stunt over from the wing. It's because he's all the way down in the corner. He's got to rotate all the way over. Like that stuff he does really well. And I know Brad values that at a high level.
The Brad comp that made me most nervous was not the KJ and Will Riley for Keaton Wagler. It was the Andres Felice for Brandon Lee. Let's calm it down a little bit. But they do like the intensity he's brought on the defensive end for a big high school scorer. I really like that. And the good thing is, Mike, is it sounds like Kylan Boswell has taken him under his wing. So a year of learning behind Kylan Boswell, at least, that encourages me.
He's tough. I mean, Brandon's a tough player. Now he's going to have to find his way, because there's just the way basketball has shifted nowadays is there's no longer like the specialists. You don't have specialists. Like, you can be a really good defender, but if you can't space the floor and you can't add something on the glass, or it's really hard to play. Like, that's why like Steve Novak's have transitioned out of basketball pretty much in the NBA. It's like
it's why Sincere Harris is not constantly in the portal.
Good point, Isaac. Yeah. So that's what Brandon has to I think overcome, in addition to just being on a really damn good team. Yeah, it's like he's playing for other Big Ten schools. I think he's probably slotted in that like ninth, 10th spot. And that doesn't mean you aren't going to see minutes. I think he's going to need to be ready when his name's called for the things I mentioned, health, foul trouble. And I think he can do that. Cause like the beauty in having a guy like that is, for a 9th, 10th guy who gets potentially sparing minutes or plays sparingly, a guy that just comes in and is like, I just want to be good defensively. That's like the perfect guy. Right. Take care of the ball and be good defensively as like a 9th, 10th guy. That's why Jake Davis plays a lot.
Yeah, and I was going to say 11th or 12th guy, Jason Jaxis. Sounds like that's what he is too. So it's nice to have that as an 11th, 12th guy. Just wanted to give a Jason Jaxis shout out there. All right, over-under wins against Texas Tech, Bama, UConn, Tennessee, Missouri, the non-conference 5 here. I said it at 2.5. All of these 5 teams are receiving votes. Only Missouri is not ranked. Texas Tech was 10. UConn was 4. Bama was in the teens. Tennessee was in the teens. Isaac, what do you got? Over under wins against those 5 non-conference opponents. I said it at 2.5.
It's a good line. I'm guessing I get a lot of plus money on the over. So if it's over 2.5 at like plus 130, I think I'll take that, just because I think they're gonna find a way to beat Texas Tech at home. I do. And I think they're better coached than Missouri. I think their plan is travels a little bit better than what Missouri tries to do at times. And then I think that they'll find a way to get one more of those others. Bama, you're kind of catching them at a decent time. Their injuries have been a real deal for them. Jaleel Bethea, their former 5-star freshman who had a disaster year at Miami, he's hurt. Latrell Wrightsell is coming back from an Achilles or an ACL, one of the two, and he's still kind of working his way back. And that front court, like Illinois' front court's going to walk in with a serious advantage in that one. That's a very thin front court that is very unproven at the high major ranks. So I'll give over 2.5 if I get plus money.
We got Mike.
I was really hoping you said under, Isaac.
I'll take the under just because I don't know who's playing. So I'll
sure.
The under.
Yeah,
that's fair.
And the Texas Tech game is the swing. The swing in this for me, because as much as I could sit there and say it's good they're getting Texas Tech early, Texas Tech can say it's good we're getting Illinois early.
Yeah.
So the tilt for me goes to the home court advantage, and because it's early on. So I'd say I got them with a win against Texas Tech. I think they get Bama. I think the style of play is really going to lend itself to how Illinois wants to play.
I like that game.
Yeah, I like that game. UC, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they exercise the UConn demons. The UConn to me, that's a top 2 nationally team to me. Top 2, top 3. Like I think UConn's that good.
Store South, it's going to be at least 80%.
Yeah. So that's just going to be a really tough game. That's not an indictment on this Illinois team at all. Tennessee, I'm saying they dropped that game. When we get closer to that game, I'll give you a more succinct breakdown. But for now, I'm just going to say Jacoby Gillespie. He may come out in a freaking Maryland jersey. I don't know. Like I'm just the remnants there are. It's
amazing how guys put on a Maryland jersey and they just become the Illini's kryptonite.
Yes,
I love that dude. That dude is
he's so good,
baller.
Dude. Oh my God,
such a baller.
Gillespie. I think that's such a big pickup for Tennessee, and then I think they get Mizzou.
Just an aside. It is amazing how many good guards Maryland's had and how underwhelming that program has been.
Yeah.
Anthony Cowan. Yeah, I mean, you go down the list. Jameer was
Melo
nasty.
Trimble.
Yeah.
How did they not win?
Daryl Morcell, who couldn't forget.
Lest we forget.
Wiggins
in there. It's pretty good. Sorry, Mike, I interrupted you because Maryland just.
No, all I had to say for the last part was I think they get Mizzou. So that's 3-2.
I think they get that one too.
And I agree with Isaac's points there. This game is not in Columbia.
Over under Big Ten wins. Boy, I think this is a high number, guys. But Ken Palm had him for 14. Torvik had him for 13. So I just split the difference and said 13.5. That's a high expectation.
I don't know, man.
I go under probably. That's a lot. But the schedule is kind of favorable for the Big Ten, right?
I went through and like just knee jerk went game by game. I honestly included a Northwestern split just because it's like which
tough place to play, low key, honestly. Like that place is not the easiest to play.
No, I think it's one of the toughest in the league.
I love that place, by the way.
But Isaac, go ahead. I'm curious. Isaac, go ahead.
The front end is really advantageous for them.
I was like 6-1, 7-1.
I know you're like 9-1, 10-1 if you really went through that record. Yeah.
I lean the over too, just because I feel like the schedule at the back half is where Illinois will be at their best. Yeah. So like the tough schedule at the end is kind of where I feel like you might see the best version of them. So I leaned slightly over, but I think it's a good line. They're going to land on 13 or 14.
Yeah, I just again like I see both sides of that argument. I see
it seems so high.
Like you get better. Yes, you get better, and like while you're better, you're also playing the tougher teams. But like you haven't gotten to that point against like the middling teams. So is there an avenue for those middling teams to kind of pick you off in one or two of those games? Whereas later in late February, March, they maybe wouldn't.
Like Iowa gets you on the road, right?
Yeah, like one of those kind of. There's going to be undoubtedly there's going to be a weird one. Like there's going to be a weird one that I probably went in and marked as a win that ends up being an L. But I had the under
to Jake Diebler. Yeah, that would be one for me. Sorry, I had to get it
on the sticks. All right. So and the reason I had the under at 13-7, I had 13-7, and like that could seem like a meh thing, but I think it speaks to what Isaac, you and I have been talking about for a long time, and that's how good this conference is going to be. Like, I think you can earn a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament at 13-7. I really do believe that. Look back last year at the SEC 18-game schedule. Tennessee's 12-6 and is a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. So conference strength goes a long way for that. So not only do you have what I think is the strongest conference in America, you're going to have just a bevy of non-conference opportunities to bolster that resume.
Your quad opportunities are through the roof. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 22 quad one games could theoretically be firmly in the range
3
of
years
outcomes.
ago, it was like you got like 2 quad one home games or 1 quad one, like something crazy.
Like the Meyer year, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like you could not find a quad one game. All those teams were so middling.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into Big Ten tournament too, that's like 3 guaranteed quad one games. It feels like too. Just throw
top 50 quad one neutral. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
number 12 overall schedule according to Bart Torvik.
Yeah,
I think that.
I was looking at again just doing my preseason Big Ten stuff, like the rosters. It's like I only hate 2 rosters in this whole league: Penn State and Rutgers. That's it. Every other roster, I could talk myself into them like winning a game on a neutral floor against a lot of teams in this league.
Well, I think it's important too. Isaac, you and I were texting about this, but I did a little research just to kind of highlight the potential strength of this conference. Because as trivial as it sounds, looking at returning scorers is actually a really good indicator for the conference. And I think I made sure to write it down so that I could reference it. But I look back at like how many top 30 scorers in the conference did you have returning for each conference? And then how many other top 30 scorers did you add from other conferences? So here's all the conferences.
Love it.
Big 12, 4 returning, 1 added for a total of 5. Not great.
They're all in on freshmen.
Big East, 6 returning, 4 added for 10. ACC, 7 returning, 2 added for 9. SEC, 2 returning, 8 added for 10. Big 10, 14 returning and added 4.
Pretty good. 18
guys you brought into the conference, or 18 guys you now have in the conference that were top 30 scorers in their conference at the high major level. That is a jarring, distinction there between those teams. It's like Big Ten, it was like the conference of retention, and SEC was like the conference of attraction. They got the most from other conferences.
And the Big East has no money, which is why they weren't able to get that whole thing. Yeah.
Apparently that changes with revenue share. We'll have to see how all that goes on. All right, last one for you guys. Over under NCAA tournament wins. 1.5. I'll go over. I'll say it right away. I think this is a team that has as long as they stay healthy, of course, but that roster, the veterans, the guard play, the bigs, you worry about a matchup against really athletic team, maybe in round 2, but Mike, I have them going over here. What do you got?
Yeah, I think over. The experience is something that, I lean towards, but also we just talked about the strength of the conference. That's going to help with seeding, which helps your position, who you play, all those sorts of things as well. So yeah, I'll go over 1.5, which would mean a second weekend.
Yeah.
I think also just the schedule that you put together in non-conference play and the Big Ten schedule basically has you set up to be wearing home uniforms for those 2 games. You have a chance to be a 4 seed at minimum if you take care of business, and that's the thing too. Like I didn't necessarily do a good job talking about last year. Illinois had a very, very high upside, but they didn't take care of business in the middle of a conference play, injuries, whatever, and everything. And your path was hard. Like Michigan State earned the right to play New Mexico in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
You earned the right to play Kentucky. Well, so
I think the other thing too, it's crazy I'm mentioning this because it's a point I wanted to hit on, and hour and 11 minutes in, but you cannot be the team this year, and I don't expect them to be, that beats team by 14 and loses by 14. Like it's on average. I think they did that in conference play, whatever it was. Can your B and C game be better? Because you're not always going to have your A game every game.
Not every game's gonna be over.
You may have 6 A games, 5 throughout the year. Like true, like clicking on all cylinders, ran this team out of the gym. You may have 5 of those. But like, how good is your B game? How good is your C game when you're like, we didn't have it tonight, but we found a way? There weren't many of those games for that team last year. How many of those games was like it was either Oregon on the road or like Maryland at home?
Yeah,
I'm
just thinking about like the exact opposite of last year's team was 2022. The floor was so high. Like every game you're in it because Kofi and Trent and Demar. Like it was just a team that every game you felt like you got a B or C game. The A might not have been even as high as last year's team, but it was just so consistent.
Yeah. And part of me wonders if this roster construction is the reason why, because like their strengths travel a little bit more consistently. When you have 4 guys that can initiate ball screens, when you have like multiple bigs, you think you're going to be a good defensive rebounding team. You think you have, your vets at the most important positions. You have retention at point guard and retention at center. Like that makes me think that their strengths could travel a little bit more to have more of those B+ games.
And it settles you in on the road sometimes? Making shots. Okay. I was just as breaking the ice, crowds loud. I mean, they had their back up against the wall so many times last year because they just could not get into a rhythm from the outside and just could not break that ice, and things just became a chore. So I just, can your B and C game be better this year? That's the question. I think it will be.
Yeah, that's where you hope. Kylan and Tommy just being that experience. So those guys that set the tone and give you that steadiness. This was fun, guys. I got to wrap it up. I got to let you go. Is there any final thoughts? I'll let you go first, Isaac.
No, I don't have any other final thoughts. All I'm just thinking about is, Kylan Boswell's threes and which ones he takes and which ones he doesn't. That's like, I spend way too much time thinking about that.
Mike LaTulip, any final thoughts?
I just emptied the tank for an hour and 13 minutes. So this is great, guys. I mean, I can't wait to, hopefully we all see each other in Champaign in a game here soon. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, this is a great start to the basketball season. It's here. Great to talk about this on the off week. But appreciate Isaac Trotter, Mike LaTulip. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're on our YouTube channel, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. If you're listening on the podcast side, give us a follow, rating, review, wherever you get your podcast. For Isaac Trotter, Mike LaTulip, I'm Jeremy Warner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer Podcast.